Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Liticast. Thank you so much for joining us. Either if you're joining us from YouTube or LinkedIn, our own website, Facebook Live. There's a couple different ways to get to us. However you got to us, thank you so much for joining. I'm super excited about the presentation today, or discussion today, I should say, because I have with me a really, really interesting guy. And I'll give you his bona fides in a moment. But, not often do you get to really spend some time with some clients and just talk about everything, the state of affairs. And Andrew and I have had the fortunate chance to do that a few times while I've been in Chicago, meeting with other clients and such. And he's really just doing very interesting work. But Andrew Stroth, thank you so much for being with us today. Andrew has an interesting background. He actually began his career when he was as a lawyer representing some kind of celebrity athlete types, Cheryl Scott, Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb, strong connections to the Philly team. It sounds like, so that was, a part of your history. And what I find really fascinating, Andrew, is that you sort of switch gears. You switch gears and you're one of those stories, one of those American stories where your passion wasn't quite there. Your passion was somewhere else. And while lucrative and while interesting, and I'm sure you met some amazing people, you hit the brakes on that and shifted gears and went another direction. So welcome. I'd love for you to expand on that and what you're doing now. That'd be great.
Well, thanks, Terry. Thanks so much for having me. And I just appreciate being part of the Litify family. I spent 20 years representing professional athletes, and I was so fortunate, from Dwayne Wade to Donovan McNabb to Michael Vick to Lovie Smith. It was just an amazing run in sports. And in Chicago, we are now reliving actually with the new special that's highlighting the Chicago Bulls championships, and with Michael Jordan for all those years. It's an amazing look back at history. So, I had a great run in sports. And then about 6 years ago, I told my wife, I'm going to become a civil rights firm. And she goes, "What do you mean you're going to build a civil rights firm?" I said, "I'm going to stop representing athletes, and I'm going to leverage my experiences to help people in underserved communities and build a civil rights firm." And a lot of people thought, why would Andrew go from representing Dwayne Wade, Donovan McNabb to building a civil rights firm? I saw, Terry, a need in our communities to make a difference. And I wanted the best and brightest lawyers to serve our community all around one issue. And that's the unjustified shooting, killing, and injuring, Black and brown folks in America. And if you just take a look at the last 10 years, you think of Laquan McDonald, you think of Mike Brown, you think of Tamir Rice, you think of Freddie Gray, you think of Eric Gardner. And so what we've built is a law firm of trial lawyers with a vision of putting technology in the middle of that to build kind of like a Navy Team SEAL 6 of civil rights. And that's what we're doing.
It's incredible to make that shift in your career. And then again, like having that passion to see that, recognize it, and do that. And I know you're a Northwestern guy. I know you kind of made your bones there a little bit. And I know that you've been involved with, leveraging some of the folks through that there to raise awareness and to really get the messaging out. And also, I'm sure, to leverage their legal minds as well, because there's some of these are very complex issues you're dealing with. And go ahead, please.
No, Terry, thanks. We have a strategic alliance with Northwestern University School of Law and the Bloom Legal Clinic. In fact, you'll remember when you hosted and sponsored our event at Northwestern a few years ago, Access to Social Justice Symposium. And so we have a relationship with the law school where they work with us on high-profile cases, and we work with students at the law school as well. And we recently just brought on board 2 summer clerks from Northwestern Law, because we want to help build the next generation of lawyers. And in fact, one of our summer clerks, Samantha Roth, is going to be working with us. And one of her jobs this summer is to do a lot of the Litify related things to just make sure we are maximizing that technology.
Yeah. Just on the technology, just for a moment. And I always say this every Liticast this comes up, and I never prompt our guests to be like, tell us how wonderful Litify is, but I will say that Andrew's a longtime client. He saw the need, the whole knowledge is power concept really kind of jumped out to Andrew. So I did not plug him, but I will say that they're leveraging our platform in a really, really well, actually in two interesting ways. One, for your law firm proper to actually manage your cases and manage the intake process and documents and all that. But you're also really building towards a national database where you and other civil rights lawyers can leverage information. You can understand verdicts and really get a better sense of what's going on and sharing that information. And the concept of a rising tide lifts all boats. But tell us a little bit about that and maybe how that's, technology sits in the center of that as well.
I will tell you that data is driving our firm, whether it's evaluating settlements and verdicts, whether it's leveraging the platform to help us be efficient on all of our filings. I mean, we think, listen, I represent mothers across the country. To be able to click on my computer and see, okay, here's the mother, here's the father, here's the young man that was shot and killed or injured, here's the mother of his child, here's the judge on the case, here's the police officers. I want to be anywhere in the world and be able to run a national law firm. And we need the technology, and we want to leverage the technology in a big way. So when I saw the platform you guys have built, it's amazing to me. John Morgan, I think, said it best at one of the conferences. He said, Reuven Moscovich has a beautiful mind, and Reuven and Terry and you and the rest of your team have built an incredible platform. But I'll tell you, it's consistent with what we're already doing. When someone gets shot and killed by the police, I fly in my guy from Seattle. He puts a drone up in the air. We capture data from the scene. We capture the video evidence from the streets. So whether it's the gas station or the store, we gather all that data. We do an investigation with people on the ground. Like, we are in the community 24/7. And so we capture all that data, and then we leverage technology to build reconstructions. I have a client, Verona Gunn, 84-year-old woman. She was sitting in her car on the west side of Chicago with her daughter driving her. They were going home from a graduation party. And out of the blue, two Chicago police vehicles flew through the intersection and crashed into her car. And they killed Verona Gunn. And it was tragic. It's my pastor friend's mother. Imagine losing your mother or your grandmother. What we did with the reconstruction, we got all the evidence, we got all the video, and our reconstruction expert was able to take that video and tell exactly, precisely the moment the light turned from red to green, from green to red, and the exact speed that the vehicles traveled through that intersection. And because of our ground game, I remember the chief of police and the high-level executive said, can we have the tape? I said, I don't own a gun. I don't own those cameras, but we got a ground game on the streets. And so our law firm, while we have some of the best legal minds and trial attorneys, we have a ground game in the community. So when you combine great legal work with a ground game and with a vision towards advancing civil rights and technology, that's a pretty powerful combination. And that's why we're winning.
Yeah, that's awesome, Andrew. And I like how you brought up the idea around drones, and that's been a common topic here on the Liticast series, where guests are bringing up ideas that we hadn't really thought about. One of them, we started it with, we need to be the Zoom for legal, because once this COVID hit, all of a sudden Zoom was on everybody's lips. And so we had a couple clients that said, you guys need to be the Zoom for legal. You kind of are. Like, how do we work on that? So we pivoted and we released Uplink, which is video conferencing right within the thing. But it's, again, that idea that we have to leverage technology, not only to keep pace, but also to sort of be inventive and be creative and think about things from different angles. So, how that cascades even into the world of justice is very interesting, because you really have that ability to do reconstructions and understanding and get varieties of angles into things. So yeah, it's just fascinating how that we keep using the term forced reckoning around COVID and cameras and being distanced from each other, like how that's just changing things. It's incredible to see that evolution. Well,
and what we're also learning from COVID is communities of color and underserved communities don't have access to healthcare. Just like technology, people need access to technology. It's the great equalizer. And so what we want to do is, and I also, so we also have co-counsel relationships because we have cases across the country. And we just filed a case earlier this week in St. Louis where a mother and her son were brutally attacked by the police. right outside of St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have co-counsel, we need to have a relationship of people that can use the same technology platform. So I could be somewhere outside the United States, but I could be sharing my documents and my data with a co-counsel in another jurisdiction to advance the case. The other thing I'll tell you, Terry, is, everyone talks about for who's going to be first chair at a trial or second chair at a trial. When it comes to chairs, there's one chair at Action Injury Law Group, and that's the chair the client sits in. We all serve the client. And so what I want to do is leverage technology and a great team of trial lawyers to advance justice in a really provocative way. And when you're asking for settlements and verdicts, you need data. I mean, I can't go to the mayors of these cities or the corporation council without the data to support the ask. And so we want to drive if I'm going to ask the city for $10 million, I'm going to have the data that supports that ask. And I just think the other thing I'll say, Terry, about technology is speed. We live in an environment where social media, listen, I do not advertise. We are selling one thing: trust. The mothers trust us. The community trusts us because we're in the community 24/7. But because of social and digital media, everything moves so fast. So when something happens, it's on social media. So I've made a concerted effort to try to work to build up social media to support our clients. And when something happens, to make sure we're capturing the evidence right then, right at that moment. So when I'm in a deposition or a filing 6 months, 12 months from now, we have evidence, because I am pro-police.
Yeah.
I am anti-police that don't follow the Constitution. And we're always going to follow the evidence.
Yeah, you brought up something in passing there around COVID and, in minority communities and sort of how it's being treated. Speaking about data and statistics, I read that out of 40 social distancing violations in New York City, 35 of them were African-American. And so you got to think that's a massive disparity in terms of if you're going to actually police that, from a letter of the law perspective.
Yes.
Things like that. I mean, actually, talk about that for a minute. Because how do you think that kind of this plays out over time in that capacity?
Well, I just think race matters. I mean, on this case that we just filed on Monday, it was a elderly Black woman and her son, and they were inside a store. And
when they were returning the television, right?
They were returning a $1,400 television that they had purchased, and they were returning the TV. And a police officer was there, and he thought they had stolen the TV. And he radioed for backup and support. And literally within moments, a 68-year-old, less than 100-pound woman is being slammed to the ground, and her son is being slammed to the ground and handcuffed. And they both sustained major injuries. And it pains me to say, but in 2020, right? I mean, race matters. I said on national news yesterday, if that family was white, would the same event have happened? And the other thing is, you look at the Ahmaud Arbery case in Georgia. I mean, it's just tragic. But for that video evidence, people would not believe that that's happening. And so, again, I represent anyone that's been wronged by the police. But my experience has been there's just a disproportionate number of African Americans and Hispanics that are profiled and impacted by this than in other communities.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's a complex topic. I come from a family of cops. My mother's side of the family is all cops from Brooklyn, and
yes.
their stories are just fascinating at family gatherings. You hear these things, and you're like, wow, and you see the struggle of it, and you see that how exactly. And even now, this COVID enters an entirely different dynamic to the fact. But I like what you said about you're not anti-cop. You're anti-cops who don't follow the Constitution. And I saw some of that video that you were talking about and that story in Missouri. And wow, I mean, it was just very interesting. And at a broader level, you worry about some of the sort of racist elements being emboldened now.
Yes.
What you see in the media and everything, and it's just scary stuff.
And Terry, to your point, we turn down, a lot of people get upset with me because we turn down 90% of the cases that come our way, because I'm not going to touch a case. If a kid had a weapon and he presented a threat, officers got to do what they got to do. But if there's video evidence that shows that the clients were doing nothing wrong and it was unjustified. And the other thing too is I represent a young man, family, Pierre Laurie, 16-year-old boy shot and killed on the west side of Chicago. he was sprinting away from the police when he was shot. So even if people do bad things, they don't deserve to be executed or killed. And so we are very mindful of the cases we take and the cases we don't take. We're also part of the consent decree in Chicago, where we filed a class action lawsuit with Northwestern, University of Chicago, and a group of other lawyers and stakeholders. That class action resulted in the consent decree, which is a federal mandated situation where the Chicago police are under a consent decree to reform. And there's been consent decrees in several jurisdictions across the country. And like Terry, I'll tell you, and again, some of your viewers may not like this, but I'm not just we're not just filing lawsuits to make money. I mean, of course, we will maximize the financial outcome for our clients, and anchoring and all those strategies and hardcore discovery and litigation is part of what we do. Our vision is make America advance civil rights in America, and amplify and lift up the voices of the mothers. One mother losing a son to police violence is one thing, but bringing together hundreds and even thousands of mothers. Mothers are the first responders. When I used to represent Donovan McNabb, I also represented his Mama McNabb, and we made her the most famous mother in sports. You remembered all the Campbell Soup commercials.
Yeah.
Insight I learned from that is the power of the connection of our moms and our mothers, right? When someone scores a touchdown in football, they don't go in the end zone and say, "Hi, Dad." It's hi, Mom.
Right.
And so we're just trying to, I think that the lawyers that are part of Litify, number one, they've embraced some level of innovation. And I would challenge the lawyers in the Litify network and all of us. How do we leverage the law and our experience and our expertise, not just to make money? Of course, they'll make a lot of money, but how do we advance the rights of others and have purpose in what we do? How can we use, like your work with the Litify's work with the ACLU? That's a game changer to provide technology to support the advancement of justice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I want to ask you about, you mentioned something, the Mothers Project and the Truth, Hope, and Justice Project as well. I want to talk to you about that. But before we do, you did say something I didn't want to go past without getting some additional thoughts from you. You talk about social media and how they embrace these stories, good or bad, as in they in quotation marks, but we, I guess, right, embrace some of these stories and start commenting, and these stories go viral. Talk a little bit about how that's good for you and how that's bad for you, because I could see that being a very double-edged sword in some of the way these stories take off and almost become like story within a story within a story. But
yeah, the power and speed of social media is just incredible. On one hand, it's been helpful for us when we filed a lawsuit and released video. It's created a fire on social media, but there's also been situations where there's been a lot of hatred and a lot of racism and a lot of negativity with social media. And I mean, it's good and it's bad. On one hand, everyone in the world is now a citizen journalist because everybody has a cell phone. Right. And it's been good for us because there's been many situations where video has been captured that show the truth as to what happened. But I also think everybody has a voice, and that's good. But I think a lot of people spread mistruths on social media and a lot of hatred on social media. So I'm not sure what the balance is. My kids don't watch TV. I don't watch TV. Everyone's getting their information from social media, which is why one of our approaches is we're dedicating a lot of resources, not to promote Action Injury Law Group or Andrew Stroth, but to promote projects like the Truth, Hope, and Justice Project, where we can show the stories of these mothers and then distribute and publish that on social media. I just want people to know the truth as to what's happening. So, yeah,
that's and it is noble. I mean, try to get to the truth, however hard it might be. Democracy is built on that. Think about it. Without that being there, it's pretty difficult. Just wanted to pause for a moment. So, folks listening, watching, if you want to ask a question of Andrew or myself or anything related to this, but we definitely have a talented guy on our broadcast today who's been, knee deep in these really complex, controversial type of cases. And, from our view, it's fantastic to have Action Injury as a client, because we like clients who are thinking about topics in an inventive way or a new way, and then leveraging, like we don't have all the answers as Litify. We have the technology capability, and what we like to have is big, wide open ears to understand how we can leverage what we know from a technology perspective to help do things like this, leveraging data to make better decisions across the country in civil rights cases. Like, that's pretty heavy stuff. And it may start as tactically as just getting, someone up and working functionally on their computer and being able to work remotely and be able to share documents. And so it all cascades, I guess is my point. But yeah, please ask us questions. We're happy to take them. So tell us a little bit about the two things I mentioned, the Mothers Project you have, Truth, Hope, and Justice Project. Talk a little bit about that, Andrew. I find that stuff really, really interesting.
So when I first started representing these mothers, I realized that, I can't bring their son back, but how do we lift up their voices? Every mother I represent has a story. And so we started Truth, Hope, and Justice, and we started on Facebook as a platform for mothers to share their stories. I mean, each of these mothers is part of a sorority they never wanted to join. And that's a sorority of mothers who have lost a loved one to police violence. And so we started it, and it was therapeutic for the mothers, and it mobilized the mothers. And the whole vision behind it is, how can their voices be heard together? So 2 years ago, we brought 100 mothers to Washington, D.C., to the Capitol. We marched on the Capitol. The mothers told their stories. We met with members of Congress, several members of Congress and the Congressional Black Caucus, and we talked about their issues and how we can advance justice. And we also took videos and photos of all these mothers so that you could, again, hear and see their stories. The exciting development is September 17th, 2020, this September. It was actually supposed to be May 7th, but we moved it because of COVID. We're going to be doing a virtual day of action with mothers across the country who have suffered from these types of violence. And we're using it in conjunction with several thought leaders, civil rights thought leaders, our mothers. We're going to do some musical tributes to the mothers. And we're also going to advocate for the Peace Act. The Peace Act is a national piece of legislation that we want to promote in DC, which is all around a consistent use of force. You'd be amazed to see the lack of consistency as it relates to the use of force by officers, and when is it appropriate or not appropriate to use force. And so again, we're going to do a big build up to September 17th, and it's all about uplifting these mothers. And it's not going to be like, we're sad, and it's not going to be a depressing event. It's going to be hopeful. It's going to be aspiring. It's going to be, the mothers are our first responders, and the mothers are the core, especially in the Black community. I think in most communities, and especially in the faith community. So we're hoping that initiative will effectively advocate for change.
I think it will. I think you've shared some clips with me, and I just think it's so inspirational to see not only the fact that, they're sharing their stories, being very brave about it, but it's also like, I guess God forbid that happens to you or someone like there's probably two responses. You can sort of turtle up and just be bitter and not want to address it and just hide from society, or do what your folks are doing, which is basically kind of try to make it better, make a situation better, take what they know and what they've learned through the whole process and share it and try so no other mother has to go through that same process.
Well, they will tell you, how do you turn the pain into purpose? Yeah. All these mothers turn the pain into purpose. And I got to tell you, I had some doubtful moments early on. I had walked away from a very lucrative career, very high profile career. And it's been tough because I've invested a big part of my personal wealth into building action and a ton of time. And we've built an amazing team. I have a dynamic, smart partner in Carlton Odom. We've got another great lawyer, Amanda Uruso. We have great clerks. We're building something really special. But December 20th, 2019, one of my client's sons, Jose Nieves, the criminal trial. We're not part of the criminal process, really. We're on the civil side, obviously. Mm-hmm. But there was a conviction. The officer who killed my client's son, Lowell Hauser, Chicago police officer, was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 10 years in prison. We had worked with the state's attorney's office to make sure she had all the evidence and the eyewitnesses and the investigation. And it was only the third time in 50 years that an officer has been convicted of murder. We walked out of the courtroom and the mother hugged me so tight and told me what she thought about what we had done helped her do for justice. And I won't tell you what she said to me, but I had to leave because I was so emotionally taken, because she had said we had changed her life and we had helped her family at a moment of need. And at that moment, it reinforced to me that I'm right where God wants me to be, and we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do to advance this cause at this moment in time in history.
It's noble. It's definitely a noble endeavor. So we do have a question. Came in via YouTube live. I live in Georgia's. This is R. Liticast. I live in Georgia's 6th congressional district and campaign for Lucy McBath. Is she part of your efforts?
So I don't know. I don't know Miss McBeth, but I'm open. I mean, if you know her, I'd love to. I'd love to know her. I mean, anyone who's committed to our cause, we want to get them connected to the September 17th event. So maybe even Terry and the folks at Litify will be kind enough to figure out how we can send some kind of message to the Litify community about our September 17th Truth, Hope, and Justice Mothers event.
We've never been accused of not sending stuff out. We, I think, are probably on the other side of that equation where I see people, well, when you used to see people in person, they'd be like, Terry, and not give in. Litify's all over me. So that tells me our marketing team is doing a great job of, getting our messaging out there. But yeah, for sure, Andrew, we'll share information out. Love for part of the idea around Litify, in particular our .org efforts, which we've had a few Liticasts around these things, is really to just get the proper kind of messaging out, connect people that they can help each other. Again, that lifting boats, all rising tide lifting all boats kind of approach. We try to just again leverage our ability to connect people, do it in a smart, concise way. Yeah. And then, you guys figure out exactly how best to leverage it.
Well, Terry, I got to tell you, other than the technology, which is amazing, I mean, to me, the best thing about this is the trusted relationships with your team. And I have personally met a bunch of folks, good folks, who we're going to do business with across the country, because you guys are building a national network. There's a bunch of bright attorneys with complementary practices. And I think it's like you said, it's the rising tide. And so, again, I'm not plugging Litify because you asked me. I'm working with Litify because you guys have personally given me a strategic advantage in the marketplace. And I think technology is the future. And even before COVID, I mean, yeah, COVID is a horrible, horrible situation, but it's forcing others to be smarter. And to me, the key to the whole thing is technology. Sure. And you've also built a DNA and a culture of people that want to make a difference. So that's what's important to me.
Right. So in an earlier Liticast, we had Sam Pond on, who we both know. And I knew this about Sam, and I brought it up, because I know he wouldn't bring it up himself. And Sam's a boxer, and I'd asked him about his approach in the ring. And he's pretty accomplished boxer, but again, he wouldn't brag on it. You are a pretty accomplished martial arts guy, so I'll bring it up for you in your behalf. But so good on you for that. But what specifically I'm interested in is, how do you take that approach in what you're doing with your martial arts training and disciplines there, and either bring it to your firm, bring it to the more broader initiatives you're working on with the mothers, perhaps? Just tell me how you sort of take one discipline into the other.
Well, first, I'll tell you, my kids and my wife probably think I'm having a midlife crisis because
aren't we all? True, aren't we all?
Because I started karate 5.5 years ago. It takes about 6 years to get a black belt, and I'm probably 3 months away from earning my black belt. And it's been to me, between yoga and martial arts, it's given me tremendous focus, because I mean, I deal with people getting killed every when my phone rings, a mom is calling me about her son or daughter being killed. And it's one thing to practice law. It's another thing when you're dealing with the most tragic event that has happened in someone's life.
Nothing more.
You are their lawyer. Yeah. And so I got to tell you, martial arts has given me balance, and it's given me peace. I also, because I'm in the community all the time and I'm in neighborhoods a lot of people don't like to go to, I thought it was wise of me. Number one, I wanted to stay healthy, and I can't play hoops like I used to. And so I decided I was going to do this yoga and do martial arts. And I wanted to have some training so that if I was in a situation, I knew how to protect myself. I also forced all 3 of my kids to take martial arts because I wanted I have 2 daughters and a son. I wanted my daughters especially to have some training. But it just has given me focus and discipline. And it's also made me think about a lot of lawyers are really busy doing a lot of work, but what are your core objectives? And what are you trying to accomplish? In the study of martial arts, you have to learn the katas, you have to learn the kumite. There's a whole curriculum that you have to learn in a very disciplined manner. So it's really helped focus me. It's also given me an outlet because even though I have practiced law for 20 years, when a mama calls you or she's hugging you because she just lost her child, even if you're the most non-emotional person ever, I mean, it's pretty emotional. So it's been a great outlet for me. And I'm addicted to it. And also I'm working on a program with my sensei to develop a de-escalation program for law enforcement, because I think by the time an officer reaches for his weapon, it's too late. And how can we create the training so that these officers have the right training to protect themselves and avoid unnecessary uses of force? So, I love karate, and I got to give my sensei a shout out, John Fonseca. He's amazing.
That last piece you mentioned, I find really fascinating because it's, we could point so many things back to a lack of education. I'm not saying cops are uneducated. That would be sort of the takeaway. That's not the paraphrase. What I'm saying is all of us I would benefit from being able to, de-escalation. Just the hell in my house alone here during quarantine, I would benefit from de-escalation lessons. But it is interesting to think about that in a broader scope across law enforcement and other areas where, you don't necessarily need to go to the gun. You probably can work this out.
Yeah.
So interesting. So Andrew, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Any thoughts before we part? I mean, you're doing an amazing job, not only as a Litify client, but really as a spokesperson for civil rights and getting involved in these cases and really, like you said, getting to the truth and make sure that comes out and the appropriate actions taking place. So I commend you on that work. I'm so thankful that you're a client, but just part of
I think the lawyers in your network, how do you combine your purpose and your passions to make real impact? I mean, we're all lawyers. We all have a lot of opportunities. And I would just say, how do we leverage at the end of the day, right? I mean, at the end of the day, no, you can't take all that money to the grave. And so how can you impact people's lives and make a difference and use your law license to have real systemic impact and change? I mean, I don't want my legacy to be Andrew Stroth represented Donovan McNabb and Dwayne Wade and after Michael Vick came out of prison and all the celebrities and stars that I've interacted with. I want my legacy to be Andrew Stroth built a team and he advanced social justice in America. And I will tell you, Terry, if I save one young kid from getting shot and killed by the police or one officer from engaging in a situation that he doesn't need to engage, I mean, officers want to go home to their families at night too.
Of course.
And there's a lot of weapons on the street and it's dangerous out here. And so I just think, the one of the positive things of COVID is I think people have all taken a step back and said, what's really important and what really matters? And how can we take advantage of this moment in time to make a difference?
Yeah, if this doesn't make us reflective, I don't know what else will. But Andrew, thanks again. Really appreciate it, folks. Continue to follow us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Litify.com. You go to Liticast series. There's some prompts in there. If there's a particular topic or a particular speaker, if you want to make those suggestions, we welcome you to do so. Today's a perfect indication of civil rights, and we're not necessarily all about technology. We want to hear some interesting topics like this and the work that people are doing. So thank you again, Andrew. Talk to you soon. I can't wait to get back to Chicago, man. Looking forward to hanging out with you.
We're ready. Okay, man.
All right.
Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you. All right, be good.